Feeling lost and overwhelmed in a job market that's changing faster than you can say AI driven resume? We're living in an unprecedented job market, and traditional job search methods often fall short. But you don't have to navigate it all alone.
This is Bridging the Gap, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate unemployment and move to your next opportunity.
We'll bring you expert interviews, practical strategies, and real job seeker journeys to help you master the mindset and take control. Join us as we bridge the gap from where you are today to where you want to be. This is the Bridging the Gap podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I am your host.
And I am Kaylee McGehee-Hurth, your co-host.
How are you today, Kaylee?
I'm good. How are you, Rick?
Absolutely fantastic. I'm excited about our guest today. Do you want to introduce her?
Yeah, absolutely. I connected with this individual on LinkedIn, as so many of us can relate with. Then our network, we had over 100 mutual connections. And finally, one day I was like, I'm going to send her a message and, see if maybe we can connect. That's what networking is, right? And right now, as we're going through, a lot of us are going through this job seeking, it's going through your contacts and saying, oh, maybe there's something that I can help them with, or maybe there's something they can help me with. It's utilizing your network. And so we connected. We then had like an hour and a half phone call, just chatting about everything. We're both in DFW. And so, she recently is now in the job market as well. So she has a lot to share, but we're going to do this episode. We're going to start and talk about some of her expert tips because she has a lot of knowledge in AI, also resume tips and networking. So we really want to get her feedback on that. And this is a 2-part episode. We'll be talking to her more in the next episode as well. So we'll welcome CJ Jones.
How are y'all?
Hey, CJ. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I am Cindy Jones, alias CJ. There's a lot of Cindy Joneses in the world, but hopefully you'll remember me as CJ. I am a marketing branding expert. I'm a career strategy coach. I love to connect dots and dogs and people, and there's a story behind that. Since 2010, I have used my marketing background to help people find whatever their next chapter is. Resume review, LinkedIn prep, interview prep, networking. When I was laid off from my corporate job back in 2013, I had probably 383 connections on LinkedIn. And this morning I have more than 23,000 connections on LinkedIn. I really
What's been some of the things that you've seen as you're getting back out into the job market and trying to find, new work, new opportunities?
It's a tough one out there, y'all. This is not my first rodeo. I was laid off from Aetna in 2013 after almost 20 years there. And I tell people I didn't have to find my resume on a floppy disk, but it was pretty close. It had been quite a while since I had looked for a job. I had 383 connections on LinkedIn. And I had been working 60, 80 hours a week. So I didn't know how to find a job in the new world order. Started going to some networking groups here local in the DFW area. South Lake Focus Group is a great shout out to that. But I really saw the importance of connecting. I mean, you're not going to find a job just to jump right in. You're not going to find a job by applying for a job. Spoiler alert. And so I got some really great advice from my outplacement service. And they asked me at the time, are you going to work, 18 more years in corporate America? And I told them, I said, I hope to not be in my late 60s. Working a corporate job. I hope to be doing something part-time or working for a nonprofit or doing something for fun, not just for money. And, but it's a different world out there. This is my third rodeo of being laid off, or as my career coach says, job eliminated. That's just semantics. It is what it is, right? So, but
yeah, I was going to say, it's not your first rodeo, but it
my first rodeo is not my second,
completely a wild, different story this time around.
It's a totally different, even in 2013, just as a simple example, in 2013, career coaching told me, or my outplacement service, that you could have, if you had more than 10 years experience, you could have a page on your resume for every page. So I had a 3-page resume because I had 30 years experience. When I got laid off in 2019, just 6 years later, it had really cut down. It was just, you had to have a 2-page resume max.
What are people looking for now? I'm hearing like people are doing like AI generated resumes, and
well, that's part of the challenge with an AI generated resume. I actually went to a workshop right before the holidays, and they were talking about so many people are using ChatGPT or other AI services to create your resume based off that job description. Everybody's resumes look exactly alike now. Right. There's no differentiation. Now, I do use ChatGPT to help write a resume and maybe give me the buzzwords on a resume, but you cannot just copy and paste off a job description because you're not distinguishing yourself at all. To me, the resume is just your like teaser. Like when you have a movie teaser, a movie trailer, that's what your resume is. It's just getting your foot in the door. People are going to look at your LinkedIn. They're going to look at your networking. If I haven't already said this, spoiler alert, I found one job in 30 years by actually applying for a job. Every other job I've gotten, it's because I went in there either as a contractor or someone hand delivered my resume to somebody. So and it's so, that's part of the challenge now in this 2025, 2026 version of looking this rodeo. There's so many people out looking at the
Yes.
same jobs. So it's like, how do you get yourself to that top of that pile?
Stand out. Yeah, exactly.
And
That's the
it's
challenge.
really going to have to be that, I'll be the first one to tell you, I do not like networking, but I wouldn't have met y'all if I hadn't been networking, right? It's amazing who you meet along your path and who can help you get your foot in that door.
And tell
It's
what
more
you
important. Your networking is more important than the piece of paper, than your resume for sure.
yeah. There was something that you said when we were talking about what you do before you go into a networking event because I was sharing with you like, "Oh my goodness, like, I'm gonna put on professional clothes and go to this, and nothing's gonna come out of it."
So I will tell you, so, especially after COVID, it takes a lot for me to leave my house, put on makeup,
Mhm.
do my hair, and put on hard pants. I'm just saying. So
Yep.
I don't push my faith on anybody, but I'm like, I pray my way into a networking event going, Lord, please make this worth my while.
Yeah.
Let me meet one or two people that is worth
Yeah.
the drive over here. Or,
Mhm.
and I met someone the other day. It wasn't even a networking event. I was getting my nails done at a nail salon. I had
Mhm.
one nail that had to be fixed. I literally had 10 minutes before our next lunch meeting. And I met this woman getting our nails done. We had a great conversation. We had a really good story interaction and we exchanged phone numbers. And
Yeah,
I don't
network
know that it
isn't
will,
just, organized events.
who knows if
It's
it'll turn
also
into anything, but it
yeah,
was just having
exactly.
that conversation.
Yep.
So I think you really have to have the importance of having the conversation.
Mhm.
And again, networking can be your friend, it's a friend, not a foe. Maybe we can make that maybe that's our hashtag on our t-shirts. So, because it is so important. And I think also I'm finding a lot I'm not a millennial or a Gen Z. Again, not going to tell you I'm not ashamed of how old I am, but I've been out in the work world for 30 plus years. So you can do the math, right? But I think so many millennials and Gen Zs are so intimidated by a networking event, an office setting. There was a thing out there the other day. They were like, would you take a remote job for $120,000 a year or an in-office job for $240,000 a year? And most of the Gen Zs were like, I would take the lower job to not have to go into an office. And the office it's not scary, y'all. A hybrid is the best situation. You can go in the office 2 to 3 days a week. And the insider joke at my last job is there's a snack wall and we had free Dr. Pepper. So I was like, hey, what else, what else do you really need in the job? But I
Benefits.
think you got to have those conversations because you don't know who's going to connect you to whoever your next job is going to be with.
Yeah,
You
one of
know
our
what they
previous sorry, go ahead, Rick.
what dawns on me as I'm thinking about that is the story. What are you gonna how does one prep
Yeah.
themselves in order to have those conversations? What is that thing that the one of the things that we talk a lot about is just being memorable. It's like one thing to go in and
Yes.
just have a conversation and meet someone, but something else to make that impact so that someone says, "Hey, you know what? I remember CJ said, blah blah blah. Let me reach out to her again."
So in this last bit of time, I told myself I was going to network with everybody I could, kind of thing. So I spent, my first 60 days of being laid off, I would network as much as I could. I found networking events on LinkedIn. I found it through different groups, like I mentioned, South Lake Focus Group. There are different things through chambers of commerce. The former chairman of the board, I just rotated off of a nonprofit here in the DFW area called Six Stones. Give you a little commercial right there. I was able to go to different events representing Six Stones. And then this is my favorite question. You meet somebody brand new at any kind of event, what do you do? And I was, I will go, well, I'm currently in a job transition. I'm looking for a marketing role in healthcare or any other industry. I'm also the chairman of the board of a nonprofit called Six Stones. Let me tell you about that. So it gives me an entree to have a conversation. And I've had so many people reach out to me in this job transition about what can I do to help you? When I posted on LinkedIn, and this is controversial, you can choose whichever way you want to go. I have the green banner on my LinkedIn and I know I'm jumping ahead to our other, but it's like, how else are people going to know that I'm looking for a job? There's nothing to be ashamed about. It's a job elimination. I happen to be one of the ones that was part of that, that was I don't like this phrase. They called us the affected ones. I'm like, we do not have leprosy. We're not on an island somewhere, y'all. But I have found, it's really kind of funny, I guess. Some of the people that I didn't know as well that were part of this group that I used to work with that are on this affected island with us, we hang out all the time. We have conversations. We've become each other's good support group because that's one of the things that's so important because it can be so isolating looking for a job. And if you're spending, back to the whole, Rick, your conversation about making your resume fit that job. I was talking to somebody that I met through a networking group, and she's like, I spend an hour every time updating my resume to match that job description. I'm like, I would rather spend 10 minutes making sure my job description and my resume match up as much as I can without copy and pasting and not using ChatGPT. I'd rather use that other 50 minutes to go talk to people because
Yeah.
you're going to be so much more effective. Okay, so back in 2013, the little cheat code back then was people would take the job description and pull out, this is before, it's before ChatGPT or anything. They would pull out certain words, they would put it on the resume and they would make it white, the font. So you couldn't see it with the naked eye, but the ATS system would find that word and say, oh yeah, they have that skill. They didn't have that skill. They were just kind of gaming the system. That's kind of how I feel about, ChatGPT or any of the other, Copilot or whatever your other AI generated tools are. I think people are trying to use it to game the system. And there's so many things out there that will say, here, I'll help you with this. And people are spending good money when you don't need to do that, I don't think. So, but
Well,
you
what
have to
is
be,
your stance on like resume expert? I was taught, and
yes.
mine's not quite as long, but a 20-year career. And we were always taught, like to tailor it to every job. And as you were saying, who you were talking with was doing an hour, and tailoring a cover letter. Like, what are your thoughts on doing that every time and writing a cover letter?
So my thoughts so I have been told through somebody, depending on your level, if you're a director or above, your cover letter probably is worth that extra time because it gives you more real estate to talk about what your skill sets are.
Got it.
I don't really love doing custom resumes just because it takes up so much time. What I do for my clients is I have a headline, I have an about section that tells your best story. I have a skills section that gives probably 12 to 16 skills. Back in the day, when I was way back in the day in grad school, in journalism school, we called it above the fold. Back when we had newspapers,
Yep.
you want them to have your best lead stories above the fold. Well, that's what you need on your resume. Because my joke is back again, 2013, my first recruiter conversation I had, he happened to be named Tristan, going to call him out. And he was like, well, CJ, how'd you find your job at Aetna? I'm like, well, Tristan, before the internet, this is how we found jobs. Well, I have then told Tristan that I am older than the internet, right? And so, but Tristan was like, if you're going to have a recruiter that's a young recruiter, and my joke is they all have some kind of cheerleader name, Tristan or Caitlin or whatever, they're not going to look at your resume more than seven, it's less. It used to be 10 seconds. I think it's down to 7 now. And if they're using an ATS screening system, you may not even have that much time. So to me, when I was talking to that person that said, I spend an hour every time on your ROI is not there. You're not going, again, you're not going to get the job off your resume. You're just not. And so take the
That's a
time
good
where
point.
it matters. Make sure your resume, make sure it doesn't have any typos or, make sure it doesn't have a weird format. There's so many. I use Kick Resume as a great program that will do your formatting for you. I use the premium version since I help clients out, but make sure your resume is ATS friendly. It doesn't have to be customized to that job, I don't believe, but make sure it's ATS friendly because if that's what they're using as a screening tool. But make sure you're telling your best story and make sure you have I had one time somebody telling me, oh, I don't know that this is a good font for your resume. It was the standard font. It was an Arial, or a Times Roman or whatever it was back in the day. Don't use any weird fonts. Do not use I don't believe in using resumes off of Canva because they're too fancy. And what's
Yeah, I
happening
used
with
to do that.
those
I have a QR code up there, and because
no,
I design too, so I wanted
no,
to be able, but
I
that
think
doesn't work.
okay, don't put your photo on your resume. You're not a real estate agent or a starlet, you're not in Hollywood. Do not put it, that's what's going on with those really, I talked to so many new college grads that have these very pretty resumes that have these curlicues or flowers well, ATS can't read that. Especially if your name is in that block and it's some kind of fancy like header thing, TS can't read that. It just looks at like a black box. So, so make it but you don't want to make it so ugly and dull. There's a happy medium there. Don't make
You
it
want to stand
colored.
out.
Make it a black or a gray. You can do like a different colors, like a black or gray scale, but don't have a purple, don't have a red or whatever. That's not going to be red. That's not going to. It's not going to make the. It's not, if you can't get to the top of the pile through the ATS system, you're never going to be seen by that recruiter. You're never going to be on the top of that pile.
Well, and as you said before, which I heartily agree with, even if you are getting to the top of the pile of ATS system, that's still not going anywhere.
No,
Just
no,
applying to jobs is
no,
not
no,
working. I mean,
no.
I've talked about this before. I get 4 to 5. I got at least 4 just this morning rejection emails, and they all say the same thing. We closely looked at your application. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
You have to know somebody.
Correct.
You have to know somebody. Or you have to utilize your networking and make sure that your resume and all this kind of stuff is
Correct.
up to
Well,
par.
make sure it
Yeah,
shows the best story of you.
right, right.
And you have to, I mean, it's all about connections. It's like, who are you connected with at your former jobs? Who do you carry along with you? If you are a robot at work, especially, I mean, I think again, back to younger workers that have not maybe been in an office setting, who's gonna vouch for you? If you've applied for a job at XYZ company and you happen to know the director, maybe not in HR, but in another department, say, hey, can you put in a good word for me with the HR or with the, if with the direct hiring manager,
Even
who
finding out if
can
it's a good
who can
match for you too.
correct.
Find
I
out
mean, that's
information.
what there's not as many contract jobs, but my first job, well, out of grad school, I had a couple of jobs kind of thing, but the job I was at the longest, I had gone in as a contractor. I had been there 2 days, and the person called me in, and that was the boss, and said, "What's your background?" And gave her my background. I have a master's degree in public relations, business communication. Like I was doing my little spiel. Rick, back to you. What do you talk about? And they're like, "Well, why are you working as a temp?" And I'm like, "Well, I had been laid off from my hospital job." And I said, "Why do you ask?" And she said, "Well, you're smarter than our average temps." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think you should probably tell people that, but here we are." And they were starting a brand new program, at a care program. Back in the day, Tom Landry was her spokesperson, and they didn't have a marketing team. And she's like, "Would you like to be the first person on the marketing team?"
Get your
Well,
shoe in the door.
heck yeah, I would. And I had been there 2 days. I was supposed to fill in for someone for 1 week assignment. I was there 2 days in. They made a job for me. 6 weeks later, I had a full-time job, and I was at that company almost 20 years. But I was the
Yeah.
right person with the right skills at the right time.
Yep,
And I'm
and you got
still
your
friends
foot
with
in
that
the
person.
door.
Still
Yeah.
friends with that person that it was her honeymoon. So yeah, I'm very appreciative of her too. Like, I'm glad you got married so I could get my foot in the door. But my funniest about not finding a job, based off a resume, the job that I have the funniest experience with, I found a job because I was driving past the building on my long commute and I thought the building was pretty. I'm like, what do they do? Because they were building the building. They didn't have a sign on the door. And so when they had the sign on the side of the building, it was in healthcare. And so I applied for the job off of LinkedIn. And this was a handy hint. Someone had told me, one of the many people I had talked to, if you're on LinkedIn and you're looking for a job, either look for the title or look for the company, but don't look for both because you'll filter yourself out. And this happened to be a sales and operations manager position, which I would not have found if I'd been filtering on marketing. And
Mhm.
it was a small company. I got contacted by the HR person. They reached out. I had a first interview on a Monday. I had a job offer by Friday, and I had 4 interviews in between. That is not the real world, y'all. And I
Yeah.
was there for 3 years, and it was a great job during COVID and that kind of thing. But I really, honestly, that's the first job I got in 30 plus years that someone didn't walk me in the door.
Yeah. Yeah, it's keeping your eyes open, right, and noticing. We're running out of time, but we like to close the gap, right? The circle, close the gap, bridge the gap. How can you advise to bridge the gap for people that are listening to this with your expert tips?
Make the connections. You are more than just your resume. You are more than just your title. Make sure people know you're looking. I have people that are like, well, I don't want anybody to know. Who are you hiding from? I mean,
Do
and
you
it's
want a
not the
job or
want a job. I mean, I have people all the time tell me, oh, have you tried Indeed? Yes, Indeed, I have. That's not how you find a job. And so it's like, just have those conversations, right? If you're sitting at a nail salon, that lady at the nail salon knows that I'm looking for a job, kind of thing. So have the conversations. Conversations are more important than the paper. And always have a good LinkedIn.
I love that. I think that's great tips. My oldest son, has taken on the responsibility of sharing with everybody that his younger brother cannot go back to school until mommy finds a job. I'll just leave it to him. Rick, anything else?
CJ, thank you so much for being on the show. We enjoyed your
Thank you.
conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, CJ. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Y'all take care.
All right. And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Bridging the Gap podcast. We'll catch you next time. We hope this episode has helped you feel a little more in control in your career journey. Remember, you don't have to navigate it alone.
For more on bridging the gap between where you are today and where you want to be in your job search, be sure to subscribe to Bridging the Gap wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online for more tools and resources.
Join us next time as we continue to help you navigate unemployment to your next opportunity. Until then, stay resilient.